Hey guys, welcome to Natural Aesthetics. I've got some cool research here that I want to share with you guys really quickly. Just go over the main points. So this is a paper titled Dietary Strategies of Elite Natural Bodybuilders, and the research showcases some interesting trends between groups. So guys that placed in a bodybuilding contest and guys that didn't place. The average age was higher for the competitors that placed. Percentage of weight loss was similar. In fact, slightly lower for the guys that placed. Weeks dieting was similar. Estimated body fat percentage was lower for the guys that placed versus the competitors that didn't place, 5% to 6.9%. That's a considerable difference in terms of the visual difference of how those athletes will look. That's quite a lot of body fat. Interestingly, the training showed no real difference between the two groups. There was a little bit more CV being done by the competitors that placed versus the competitors that didn't place. 30.8 minutes at the end of the pre-contest diet for the placed versus non-placed at 32.5. So a little bit of a difference there. Interestingly, there was quite a large difference in the dietary protocols for the competitors that placed and the competitors that didn't place. So at the start of the pre-contest diet, 5.14 grams per kilo of body weight per day was the carbohydrate intake for the competitors that placed versus 3.72. This is a considerable chunk of carbohydrates in terms of difference, and this can be seen both at the start, middle and end of the pre-contest diet. There was a trend for bodybuilders who placed to consume more protein and energy than those who didn't place. This is shown in the chart here as well. Fat intake was a little bit different, slightly lower for the guys that placed at the start of the pre-contest diet, but overall energy intake was much higher. So based on the findings, we suggest a high protein, high carbohydrate diet, low fat diet for competitive bodybuilding with at least 3 grams of protein and 5 grams of carbohydrate per kilo of body weight respectively. These are high numbers, and I think it would surprise some people the amount of food that some of these athletes are consuming whilst being able to get extremely lean. So some more research here that I'm just going to quickly show you guys. This is the effects of consuming a high protein diet, 4.4 grams per kilo of body weight per day on body composition. And interestingly enough, the results show that consuming 5.5 times the recommended daily allowance of protein has no effect on body composition in resistance trained individuals who otherwise maintain the same training regime. So that basically what that's telling us is that excessive protein consumption has no extra benefit, at least in terms of muscle mass and strength, than consuming a moderate protein intake would have. Another bit of research here which shows that those involved in strength training might need to consume as much as 1.6 to 1.7 grams of protein per kilo per day, approximately twice the current RDA. But that's not a huge amount of protein. For me, that's probably 1.5 to 1.6. So 150 to 160 grams of protein per day, which is more than doable. Another study here, quite interesting actually. Strength athletes' protein intakes of 1.6 to 2 grams per day are close to optimal requirements for muscle development. So very similar to the study that I've just showed you. Interestingly, there is now experimental evidence that suggests that excessive protein intake compared with adequate intake does not result in increased muscle protein synthesis. Amino acids deriving from excessive protein intake are oxidized rather than stored as protein. Thus, there is no data available to date showing that protein intakes as high as 3 to 4 grams per kilo body weight per day has positive effects on muscle mass development. So we can see a trend developing here. This particular bit of research shows that resistance training and strength trained athletes might need to consume as much as 1.6 to 1.7 grams of protein per kilo of body weight per day. Another quick study to go over. The protein increases from 1.35 grams per day to 2.62 grams per day per kilo of body weight does not enhance muscle mass strength gains, at least during the first month of training. Excessive protein consumption doesn't lead to any greater yields in muscle mass and strength than a moderate intake. Some interesting results here as well. The effects of variation in protein and carbohydrate intake on body mass and composition during energy restriction. So this shows that protein intakes greater than 1.05 grams per kilo of body weight per day were associated with a 0.6 kilo additional fat-free mass retention compared to diets with protein intakes of less than 1.05 grams of protein per kilo of body weight. In studies conducted for more than 12 weeks, this difference increased to 1.21 kilos. So this is interesting. This shows that during energy restriction, 1.05 grams per kilo of body weight per day will help to maintain muscle mass over protein intakes of less than 1 gram per day. And again, that's very easy to attain that amount of protein. Now, it's only 80 grams of protein for me. So it'd be interesting if the study compared that to an even greater intake in protein, say 1.5 and 2 grams per kilo body weight per day. That would be interesting. Unfortunately, it doesn't. This study actually kind of refutes the protein window, that alleged 2-hour window where we're anabolic, we have to consume protein or all the muscle mass will just disappear. We're not going to gain any muscle mass or strength from our workouts if we don't eat protein in this window. Well, these findings actually refute that, the contention of a narrow post-exercise anabolic window to maximise the muscular response, and instead lend support to the theory that the interval for protein intake may be as wide as several hours or perhaps more after a training bout. So this is the last study, and actually shows that there might be a negative effect of consuming too much protein. So the participants in the highest quintiles of percentage of energy derived from total protein and animal protein had 7% increased risks of type 2 diabetes compared with those in the lower quintiles. Moreover, percentage of energy intake from vegetable protein was associated with a moderately decreased risk of type 2 diabetes. So this shows that perhaps too much animal protein isn't probably that good for you, and certainly consuming in excessive amounts has its potential hazards. And while it's clear that as strength athletes and bodybuilders we do need to consume more protein than the current RDA, especially to prevent muscle wastage during a deficit of calories, and although the first piece of research is very interesting, I don't think we can take definitive statement from that in regards to the kind of optimal protein levels. The guys that placed were on average older than the guys that didn't place, who don't know the dietary practices before they start the contest prep, so it's kind of difficult to come to conclusions from that. Nevertheless, it's very interesting. However, I would say that most of the research indicates that the law of diminishing returns comes into play, at least in terms of describing optimal protein intake. So the research points towards 1.6 to 2 grams of protein per kilo of body weight per day, and there doesn't appear to be any research that suggests any excessive protein consumption over that yields any greater returns in muscle mass and strength. Adequate protein consumption is probably more important during a deficit of calories, and there are some research that suggests that excessive protein consumption, especially animal protein, is actually not that good for you. So thanks for watching, guys. Stay tuned for more videos. The next video will be on my new training program. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you want to see more, email naturalasthetic@outlook.com for any info on online coaching, stuff like that. Stay strong.